Hello, and welcome to the FM Podcast. I'm Jen Fritz, and I run Fritz Media, a music publicity and digital marketing firm located in Vancouver, Canada. And this is episode number 4 of the podcast. So I've been working in the music industry since about 2003. And before that, I worked in radio, which I guess is pretty much the same thing. It is music industry adjacent. So overall, I've been in this business for over 20 years. And there's been a lot of changes in that time, but there are some things that are still the same and that we're still working on changing, like, for example, the lack of diversity in the Canadian music industry. And I'm not just talking about the artists. When I say diversity, I mean the entire industry. For the most part, my experience of working in this industry is that it's mostly made up of white, cisgender, heterosexual men. And yes, things are changing. Slowly but surely, they are changing. But for the most part, the gatekeepers are still the same as they were when I started. And my experience in this industry is as a cis, hetero, white woman, which means although I have experienced some discrimination in the workplace, not being paid the same as my coworkers, being passed over for jobs, not getting taken seriously, all of those things. But all of that stuff aside, I do still have a fair amount of privilege. So today on the show, we're going to talk about diversity and education in the music industry. And our guest is D.O. Gibson, or Dwayne, which he was kind enough to let me call him. Dwayne is a rapper and educator and someone who's doing a lot to create change within our industry. And we're going to talk about his conference, the Northern Power Summit, and their upcoming event, Black 365. We're also going to talk about his school outreach program called Stay Driven. And, of course, we'll talk about his music. I really hope you enjoy this talk and maybe get a little bit of education from it. Here's my conversation with D.O. Gibson. All right. Well, hello, Dwayne. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's nice to meet you. And actually, we've never met before. And you know what? You're actually the first person that I've interviewed on the podcast that I don't know.
Oh, wow.
which is kind of weird. We are a new podcast, so it was bound to happen sooner or later, So it's kind of exciting right now for me. Might be a little terrifying as well. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how this interview, how it runs its course. So the theme of today's show is diversity and education in the music industry. And you are obviously someone that knows a lot about that. You're someone that does a lot of work to make the Canadian music industry more diverse. And you help provide education and access to all artists. And we're going to touch on the work that you do, all of the work, because I went through and it is a lot of work that you do. So we'll touch on all of that. But right now, I just kind of like to start with the Northern Power Summit and your event, Black 365, which is coming up on February 20th. What can you tell us about that?
5th year that we're doing Northern Power Summit. And thank you for that intro. I really appreciate that. 5th year for Northern Power Summit. And it's kind of like what you touched about on that is we are trying to give resources to urban music community, the Black music community, the BIPOC music community, because this is often an ignored space in music. So this is to us something that can bring people together in this virtual landscape. People feel disconnected. And what we like is that our audience is teenagers, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds, all kind of coming together and finding community in that. And I think that's really important because, I was watching the Super Bowl. The Weeknd is the halftime performer, which is the pinnacle of any artist. And some people on my timeline are saying like, wow, he's giving hope to artists coming out of Toronto or out of Canada. And I'm like, yeah, he's giving hope. But the reality is it hope? Because I don't know if the industry is really ready to foster the next Weeknd here. And so it's sad. And so, I mean, myself and my friend and partner, Preetam, the co-founder, we recognize this and we just wanted to be part of the solution. Even though we're just quote unquote artists, we thought we could be part of the solution.
All right. So even though the conference is online this year, you're still going to be able to provide education and tools to the artist, as well as access to individuals, which, as we know, is such an important thing in this industry. access is the thing that holds a lot of people back. It's one of the biggest barriers in the Canadian music industry, as we know, as I'm sure you know. It starts right at the top. The gatekeepers, they're the ones that make all the decisions. They tend to, historically, predominantly be white men. That's just the way it is. I'm wondering, what was your experience navigating the music industry here in Canada when you started your career as a musician?
It takes me back to the times where I was with my longtime DJ Nana, and we would sit back and talk about industry cats. And we didn't really know kind of what industry people were. They just seemed like a figment of our imagination in a way. And it's funny that now I look back and now I am that industry cat. But I remember it was intimidating to go to events, whether it was in the urban music industry or whether in the mainstream Canadian industry, because we didn't feel like we were part of the clique or part of the circle. Growing up outside of Toronto made it just seem foreign. So going to the United States and going to specifically places like New York, Chicago, Miami at the time, it didn't seem like I was that much of an outsider. They were just kind of like, oh, you from Canada? Oh, yeah, like what's going on in Toronto? And it was this energy that they were excited to find out about it. And so I took that energy and I started traveling and going around the world. And to bring it back home, one of those travels was to the Netherlands and connecting with Henke Maduro, who runs New School Rules. And she's going to be one of the speakers in Northern Power Summit. So right there is directly a connection for an artist to make. Is like, I'm going to come and hear what I can do to get over there, meaning to Netherlands, and to perform at a conference like New School Rules. I think that's a pretty cool opportunity for artists to kind of break through and see that the gatekeepers these days are some pretty cool people.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the music industry it's a global business, right? Like, especially the world we live in. So I think that that's really great, but it's so interesting because you're not the only artist that this has happened to, that so many artists have to look outside of their own country to get recognition. And that's just because they can't be heard here, which is sad. But I think it's important to point out that what you're talking about is connecting and making your own connections yourself. And I think that that's probably one tip that musicians can probably take from you. Like, you've got to make those connections. You're helping them to do that with your summit, with the conference. But that is like a really big key piece of the puzzle, right?
It's a huge piece of the puzzle, connecting with people. And to me, that's one of the things that when I just sat back and looked at where my career has gone, that's one of the number one things, is connecting with people. And to me, networking does not have to be this whole intimidating practice. And I guess what I mean by that is, I remember in university, I had to go do like a career day, and they brought some entrepreneurs in and whatnot. And I saw some people were just stiff and prim and proper talking to people like this. Whereas because it was an informal event, though, too, it wasn't, you didn't have to dress up for it. I had a basketball jersey on. And like I said, it was supposed to be informal, and we were told that it was informal. And so it wasn't supposed to be that you go up to people and just say, what do you do? What do you do? And I remember I was just kicking it, and I got into a long conversation with this older gentleman about basketball because I was wearing a jersey. And that's all we talked about. And then at the end, he kind of asked me what I wanted to do or what I was doing in school. And I asked him about himself. And turns out he was one of the most successful people there. And what I learned from that with networking is, now that I approach it, I don't approach it going in and saying, what do you do? Nor do I go up and say, hey, I'm a rapper. I've got this. Check out my single. That's not the right way to network. The right way to network, I believe, is to just make a human and personal connection and then see what grows organically from there.
No, that's 100% true. And it's actually, that is so helpful in all parts of your career. If you are just your authentic self, like, especially like we tell that to our artists for social media, you shouldn't be there like being selly, being over the top and selly. You should be there being yourself. And that's what's going to make people connect with you. That's what's going to bring people to you and make them listen to your music and really want to support what you're doing. It's a really key piece that is missing from, like, so many artists do not know how to do that. That's great. crazy. So on top of, being a musician and running this amazing summit, the Northern Power Summit, you do outreach at schools and you have an educational program called Stay Driven. What's the story behind this program?
Stay Driven, this is the 20th year anniversary. So 20
Wow.
years ago, I graduated from university. I put out my first professional release, a CD called Stay Driven, and I put a music video that arrived on Much Music, did it independently. My mom was a teacher and became a principal. So if you ever know teachers, they kind of hang out with other teachers. And so one of her friends was a teacher and asked me if I'd come in and speak to our class. And her husband was a teacher. So in the afternoon, I went to his school and I just felt it was natural. It just kind of was cool with me because I was really nervous doing it. Don't get me wrong. But like I did a presentation in a library and I was like, what am I going to talk about? And I was talking about goal setting. But then when I got there, I just realized, these kids just want to hang out and chill and I could speak their language. And so we developed this program and I'd start speaking to whole assembly gym formats and grew up from there. And now I've done over 2,500 performances.
Holy.
Yeah, it's been quite the go. And it's been cool to expand beyond Ontario. I do a lot of work in BC with Art Starts and going to Haida Gwaii and Kamloops and Prince George and
Awesome.
all these remote areas. And that goes for Ontario too. And now I really focus on anti-bullying as well as Black history. So I call it Black Canadian 365 and leadership. And to me, strangely enough, all those three things go together. But I think it comes back to that general message of to stay driven, to persevere through obstacles.
Yeah, I had a look at all of the different programs that you do offer, and I was amazed at the variety, like how many different ones you have. What is like the most popular or the most requested program that comes from the schools?
Yeah, it's been interesting because bullying was the number one thing for so many years. It was all about anti-bullying, and I did hundreds of presentations on that. But the last few years, it's been this Black Canadian program. Mm-hmm. And what has been cool for me is that it went beyond February because I would start booking up all of February, 2 shows in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. And then people would want the first couple of weeks of March. And then there would be March break. But then I was finding after March break, people would still want the Black history. And I thought that was really cool because as a Black person who's in the arts, you get used to February being a very busy month. It is for every professional. But it was cool for me when I started getting these bookings in November and December for Black history. So that's why I rephrased the program to Black Canadian 365, because Black history to me is not something that is just 28 days long. It's every day. So yes, that's my most popular program, and it's a lot of fun to do it.
I think that, that is really so important because there is actually so many people, I think probably the majority of Canadians that have absolutely no idea or have never learned or heard about, Black Canadian history. That history is something I wasn't taught in schools. That's for sure. And I think the majority of our educational system is, very white based. That's the world. Yeah. That's the world we live in. So it's great to hear that is changing. I would like to touch on that subject of you being very busy in the month of February. That was something that I was, conscious of when I made this interview, because I hear that from a lot of Black people in the industry that is like, oh, you only care about what I have to say in February. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I guess some people take it in a bad way. That I was just reading an article in a national newspaper about how Black History Month is exhausting for some people. And I think Black Lives Matter became exhausting for some Black people because a lot of white people wanted to be an ally or wanted to know what to do. And they would approach their Black friends, but at the same time, they weren't sure to approach their Black friends. And some Black people felt overwhelmed by it. But for me, this is my life, man. And I say that because I grew up in a lot of towns and communities of white people. And I know what ignorance is like. And I know what it's like to be called the N-word. And I know that half the time that when I was called the N-word, it wasn't intended to be racist. And I had to sometimes not say anything because, like as much as we're in a culture now that says if somebody says something to you, you have to stand up and say something. Well, you can't do that all the time. And at the same time, when somebody wanted to find out information, I had to be the one to kind of break it down to them. So when I talk about, Black history and Black History Month, sure, would I like it to happen all year round more? Yeah. But it's a responsibility, I think, too, that you take it serious and that you do give your best and express yourself, especially in the times that we're in these days with Black Lives Matter and police brutality and a shift from what's going on politically in the United States. So, yeah. I'm all for it. And I'm glad that I'm in this position where I can try to give some knowledge to not just kids, but to adults too, because I think we're all just trying to learn and be more aware and quote unquote woke.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's nice that you're so open about that, because I know that it is exhausting when you have us white people, asking you questions, trying to prove how woke we are. So also, I would like to point out, fellow white people, that there is the internet available to learn all of these things. You do not have to plug your Black friend about it. So you could just do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, we talk a lot about diversity in the Canadian music industry, and there's a lot of things that are happening, to make things more diverse in a lot of different ways. And I find that, I sit on all of these panels, I go to all of these conferences, I guess in the before times, not so much now, but just online conferences like yours. But I find that, when I am on these panels and when we are having these discussions about diversity, we always come up against this idea of meritocracy and this idea that the people that are at the top deserve to be there. And if we try to make things more diverse, that dilutes the pile a bit. And it frustrates me. That argument has always frustrated me. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a complicated question.
It is really complicated.
But I love it because, I was just looking at the NFL, and the NFL is dealing with a lot of issues of trying to put more coaches in that are Black, more general managers in, and they've created these rules and different ways to do it. And then I looked today, and the guy who got a job was the son of the past coach who retired, and there's nepotism involved. And so there's those systematic barriers. What those systematic barriers are in Canadian music industry, it's simple. This country is about rock and roll and country music and hockey and beer. and it has been dominated behind the scenes by white men over these years. And I don't think that they purposefully try to freeze people out. But I think that when that is the dominant part of the industry, that they are just unaware sometimes of others. So an example of that is when Drake hosted the Junos in St. John's, Newfoundland. and Drake wasn't as big, obviously, at the time, but he was a pretty big star. And he got shut out. He didn't win a Juno. And so he kind of basically said to himself, I'm never going to go back.
Yeah.
And Drake, at the time I came up with Drake in that way. So if meritocracy exists, then Drake would have been signed to a Canadian label and they would have got behind him the way that they would have got behind a band or a rock group or someone. And the same goes for The Weeknd. And these things just don't happen. They just don't happen. And so there's a specific kind of Black artists that they have kind of promoted over the years. And hey, I love Chaos and I love Shad, and they are phenomenal artists, like phenomenal. But I also think one of the reasons that got them through is because they had a guitar.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And I think that's troubling. Like when you look at which Black artists have been successful, especially the male ones in Canada, I can't count like 5, or I struggle to. And then you wonder what brings it there. So yeah, as far as meritocracy goes, I don't believe that exists here. As far as if you work hard, that you're going to succeed.
No, I obviously I agree with that. And I think that what happens when you do have those discussions is they're looking at it through their own lens, and they don't really understand that maybe that's not what I would like to hear or what you want to hear, right? Like, we all have our own experiences. And that's why when you have people in positions of power and they tell their stories through their music or their art or their film or whatever, we just hear about other people's stories as opposed to just the same story that we're going to hear over and over again from white men and women. You know, there's so many different stories that have to be told. And this idea that everybody that is at the top or winning is the best is like crazy to me. And it's just like, if you think that the people that are, you know, running our country are the best people to run the country, or, you know, it's like, what are you even talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it all comes down to access, which is, it's so fabulous that you're doing the work that you do. So
can I add on to that for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I do appreciate the people in power that want to do something. I went to the SoCan Awards a couple of years ago and ended up at a Chinese food spot late at night with, you know,
I know this story.
Yeah. And, but it was a cool table because it was kind of a mixed table of 4 people of color and 4 white guys in the music industry, long-term guys. And it was cool because we were at a point in the night where everybody was just being honest and genuine. And they were basically saying, we want to do something. Sometimes we just don't know what to do. And that came from a nice place, a genuine place. And fast forward 6 months, I'm at the Junos in London, Ontario. I'm with 2 other Black guys that are from London, pretty prominent in the city. They've been there for years. And we go to a label's, I won't say the label, but a label's after party after the Junos. And they don't let us in. And I am on the list. But it was kind of just, sometimes you just get the vibe that it feels a little racist.
Yeah, it might be, might be a little racist.
And, you know, like, let's be honest. You know, I'm a 40-year-old guy with 2 other 40-year-old guys. We're dressed really nice. We're in suits. So we're not threatening. But why aren't we getting in this party? So I see that same guy who came out to that Chinese food place. And I said, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm meaning. And he says, wow, really? That happened? And he went back and he talked to the guys at the front. And next thing you know, we're into the party. And then when I'm in the party, I'm seeing some power movers and shakers. And it's the last night of the Junos. Everybody's partying. Everybody's having a good time. And I got so many, oh, Dio, it's so cool that you're here. It's so good. You know, you need to be in these rooms. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't have been in the room if somebody hadn't have got me in here, but I shouldn't even had to do that. And that's how deep these things go. And so again, to be a 40-year-old Black man in a suit and still be considered, you know, like almost like a thug. It's insulting.
Yeah, it's insulting on so many levels. And I think that, you know, even people saying to you, you deserve to be in these rooms is so othering. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, of course. That's awful. But that's your experience and that's the life you live.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of work to do. That's for sure. So I'd like to kind of wrap this up with a little bit of maybe an update on your music career. So what's going on there? Do you have any new music or any new projects coming down the pipe?
Can't wait to release some music because my last song was called Can't Wait. And so we're getting lit. Oh, that was my song right before We Lit. I got a chance to perform that in September at a virtual event for about 10,000 people with the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. So in a whole different sphere. So that was cool. But I'm rolling out a new song called Black 365, which is a collaboration song with Drew Rochester, Terrell Safdie, and Keisha Fresh. So produced by Jarrell Young. So it's a collaboration with like 5 different people. And to me, that really is about unity and it's about being Black today. And I was really glad we got somebody like Terrell Safdie, who's from Vancouver, to represent that West Side. I've got the East Coast roots from Nova Scotia. Getting Keisha Fresh to have a female on there and speaking about it. Drew is a legend on the mic. Rochester, you know, a young legend too. And so that song is coming out at the end of February. And I've got a new album dropping later this spring. called Still Driven. So my first project that came out 20 years ago this year was Stay Driven. And this one is called Still Driven. And to me, it's about persevering and still being in this business, because anybody who's been in this business for 20 years knows about the curves and the pivots and adapting.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm glad to still be in this game. So I'm still driven after all these years. I'm glad, as my man Maestro Fresh West said to me one day, nearly 20 years ago, when I asked him, like, did you ever get bitter at some point? And he's like, no. And I've seen so many artists become bitter over the years, frustrated by some of these things that we've talked about today on this podcast. And I'm glad I'm not bitter. And that's my message to artists out there is don't be bitter. Go out to an event like Northern Power Summit and get that access, get those tools. Don't blame people if things don't go your way. Just keep on going. Just stay driven, and you'll be still driven.
I love it. That's such a great message. Not everything's going to go your way. And even if something bad happens, it doesn't define you. You just got to keep moving, right? Keep 100%. Moving and believing in what you're doing. All right. So now I think would probably be a good time to move on over to our fresh content segment. Every week on the show, we discuss our favorite piece of music content for the week, and we always like to start with the guests. So, Dwayne, what have you got for us?
Quake Matthews. Quake Matthews is a young veteran. He's been doing it for so long, but yet I still think of him as a young artist, because he still kind of is in a lot of ways. But he released a new song called Global this past week, and I can't stop playing it. I love it. Quake Matthews, Global. And it's fun for me because I helped him get global. I took him to Atlanta to perform for the first time, and I took him over to Amsterdam. And so he's talking about trips to Atlanta and Amsterdam and Sweden and England. And it's really cool how he really ties in those trips into those lyrics. It's got a great beat. It's a very catchy chorus. So it's really great when you've known an artist for a while and you really see them really become, who, like, bigger than you even thought they could be. So it's really cool to listen to that song.
Oh, I love that. I have that so much with a lot of our clients and a lot of my friends. It's nice when it happens. When you're just exactly. It's so exciting. Together. Yeah. All right. So my fresh content for the week is Phoebe Bridgers' recent performance on Saturday Night Live. She performed on Saturday Night Live, this past weekend. And then the internet did its thing because, she smashed her guitar during her performance.
Oh, she did? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So what happened is, she gave a great performance and then she smashed her guitar, and all of the Gen X and Boomer dads on Twitter were freaking out because how dare a woman smash her guitar? Why is she so angry? You're smashing a guitar in this economy?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it turned into that where it's just like, men have been smashing guitars for years. So don't know why a woman can't do it. But anyway, aside from all of that sexist discourse that was happening online, I think the thing that was forgotten was that it was an incredible, incredible performance. So if you haven't watched it, take the time to watch Phoebe Bridgers' recent live performance on Saturday Night Live from her February 6th episode. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to plug. Maybe you want to plug the conference again?
Northern Power Summit is happening February 20th. You can find out more information at northernpowersummit.com.
Oh, you're such a pro. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, what a great chat. It was so good to talk to Dwayne and to get to know him a little. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much for listening to the FM podcast. If you like the show, please tell your friends and give us a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. We're a brand new show, so we could really use the support. And you know what? I'd really appreciate it. And thank you to Said the Whale for providing the theme music for the show. If you want to learn more about Fritz Media, check out our website at fritzmedia.ca. And you can follow us on Facebook. We're at Fritz Media. And on Instagram and Twitter at Fritz_media. And if you want to learn more about the podcast, go to the fmpodcast.com. Okay, so we're going to go out with our song of the week this week, which is a great track from D.L. Gibson from his 2019 album Second Home. This is Cmon Cuz.
Yeah. sipping on that coffee. And then Timmy Hardin's chilling down in the basement where some of the best rounds I ever recorded. So all he felt is right to do a little something like this. Yeah. Lately I've been blacking like I haven't done since back when we was playing Madden, making wishes. Where's Aladdin when I need him? I went for doing shows for the per diem. Now I'm overseeing, they think that I'm European. Another tour completed with no referral needed. Made some hype calls in the evening and said just give me a reason. Got some cousins in the East End, I can't wait to see them. They about to have a baby and I can't wait to meet him or her. It's a blur from wherever I'm stationed. Levy on a Chevy chasing dreams, but it's no vacation. Feel more like Karl Malone cause I'm sorta like a mailman. Ride around picking up checks is my occupation. Long as I keep getting them, I'm good like Jalen Rose. Long as I'm a can with Rob Lewis sipping rose, that's accomplishment to anyone that knows me. Keep your recognition, I walk off like I'm so yay, celebrating, never so yay. I'm not that type of rapper, if you is not trying to throw shade. Got no hate, homie do you. See I've been hustling since Kobe, thought he played for the Hornets. Okay, before he got that cold J's, some days you gotta show faith. I had to build up, now I'm a killer like Ghostface. I know about that broke days, so no change to throw away. I'm just trying to know Jay, slide in the 40-40 like Jose. Come on, cuz, you know how I does. 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 Come on, cuz, yeah. I never listened when they said my peers were competition. Had no time for dissing, I was sticking to my vision. Trying to find my niche in like a cook up in the kitchen. Now my recipes are fitting like the key in the ignition. Plan was to define, now I'm standing with the giants. Even made the naysayers say yes, like Daniel Bryan. Nothing random can happen whenever you applying pressure to the fullest. Cause I'm not a fan of trying, I do. You could tell it's in the name, D.O. Well, it's Dwayne to acquaintances that try to sound official. I'll explain, doesn't sound right like foreigners trying to speak slang. Man, bars been hard like bubble gum and baseball cards. I never back down or take that charge. Two people you never see me with, fakes or frauds. Doesn't matter what they say that cost, I paid it off. Whether we talking dues or hard work, you can save all the Hail Marys, I want the yard first. Cause it's a game of inches. See many changing pivots like they all became a critic. Hold up, wait a minute. And I'm not trying to hate cause it's okay to feel it. I might be in the club, turning up, getting down and spill it. But long as it's just Secco, cause in this game, when it's all said and done, I'm trying to leave a red wine stain. Come on, cuz, you know how I does. 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 That's right. Let's figure out just one take this one. Have a little bit of fun with it. Feel like I'm in a jazz place, man. Play with a live band.
Bye. I'll see you next Tuesday.